London, 1854. The capital of the world's greatest empire is drowning in its own filth. 2.5 million people packed into dark, suffocating alleys. Below the floorboards, cesspools overflow, leaking liquid waste directly into the soil. The city is a ticking biological bomb, completely oblivious to the horror it is about to unleash upon its own children. In the Victorian era, medical science is governed by a ghost. The elite believes in miasma, the heresy that diseases are born from foul odors and toxic night air. If a street reeks of decay, the air is deemed deadly. Doctors wear masks stuffed with dried flowers, blindly running away from the smell, completely unaware that the true assassin operates in absolute silence. Enter Dr. John Snow, a man of quiet obsession and cold, unyielding logic. He is not an elite academic. He is a practical scientist who pioneered modern anesthesia. He watched patients drift into the twilight zone of artificial sleep. He understands how gases enter the human lungs. And deep down, Snow knows the ruling medical class is dead wrong about the Great Plagues. Snow's logic is simple yet revolutionary. If cholera were in the air, it would attack the lungs first, causing coughing and gasping. But cholera attacks the gut. It liquefies the intestines, draining the human body of life within hours. The invasion begins in the stomach. To poison the stomach, the victim must swallow the monster. The killer is not a smell, it is a drink. August 31st, 1854. The dark heart of Soho Broad Street wakes up to a nightmare. A sudden, violent outbreak of cholera explodes with unprecedented fury. In a single night, a quiet neighborhood turns into an anatomical theater of agony. The speed of the infection is unnatural. Perfect families sit down for dinner. By dawn, they are cold blue corpses. The symptoms are brutal, stripping victims of their humanity. It begins with a sudden, uncontrollable purging. The body expels all fluids until the blood thickens into a black, sludge-like paste. The skin turns a ghostly shadowed blue as dehydration starves the muscles. Eyes sink deep into the skull. Victims remain fully conscious, watching themselves turn into living mummies. Within a mere 3 days, over 120 residents of Broad Street are slaughtered. The local authorities panicked, ordering the burning of tar barrels in the streets to clear the imaginary miasma. The thick, black smoke only adds to the apocalyptic atmosphere. The air is heavy, but the body count continues to rise exponentially. Soho is dying on its feet. Dr. John Snow walks directly into the hot zone. While other doctors flee the contaminated neighborhood, Snow carries a small notebook and a burning curiosity. He does not smell the air. He interviews the grieving survivors. He asks a single, seemingly irrelevant question. Where did the deceased get their water? Every finger points to the exact same spot. In the center of the chaos stands the Broad Street public water pump. It is praised by locals for its cool, refreshing, sparkling water. Residents from blocks away walk past other pumps just to fill their pitchers here. It is the social hub of the community, a fountain of life. But through John Snow's eyes, the beautiful asset is a beautifully disguised executioner. Snow begins his silent, mathematical crusade. He obtains a detailed map of the Soho parish. For every house touched by death, he draws a heavy black ink bar. As the days bleed into September, the map transforms into a terrifying visual weapon. The black bars are not scattered randomly across London. They cluster, thick and suffocating, around a single epicenter. The spatial data reveals a horrifying truth. Houses mere feet from the Broad Street pump are completely wiped out. Meanwhile, a nearby workhouse with over 500 inmates remains completely untouched. Why? Because the workhouse has its own private well. The evidence is no longer a theory. It is a precise geometric circle drawn in human blood. Yet one mystery threatens to shatter Snow's hypothesis. A wealthy widow living miles away in pristine, wealthy Hampstead dies of cholera, despite never setting foot in Soho. Skeptics laugh, claiming the miasma carried the disease through the air. Snow rushes to her mansion, desperate to find the missing link before his entire life's work collapses into dust. Snow investigates the dead widow's mansion. He uncovers a bizarre detail. The woman used to live near Broad Street and preferred the taste of its water. Every week, she paid a servant to cart a large bottle of that specific pump water to her estate. Her final drink was a bottled execution sentence. The anomaly becomes the ultimate proof. The water was the definitive vector. September 7th, 1854. Armed with his ink-stained map and undeniable data, Snow storms a tense meeting of the local Board of Guardians. The room is filled with skeptical men firmly wedded to the miasma myth. They stare at the quiet doctor with cold hostility. Snow does not shout, he presents the geometry of death. He demands a radical, immediate act of clinical sabotage. His demand shocks the room. Remove the handle of the Broad Street pump. To the officials, it sounds like an absurd joke. How could disabling a mechanical device stop a disease lurking in the atmosphere? They scoff at his charts, driven by blind arrogance. But with the body count climbing outside the windows, the terrified politicians reluctantly capitulate. The next morning, a lone city worker approaches the infamous pump carrying a heavy iron wrench. A small, silent crowd of hollow-eyed survivors watches from the shadows. With a sharp metallic crack, the bolts give way. The iron handle is stripped and carried off, silencing the mechanical heart of the contagion. The fountain of death is officially shut down. The impact is immediate and staggering. The raging epidemic stops dead in its tracks. No new cases emerge from the Broad Street grid. The deadly circle on Snow's map ceases to grow. It is a historic triumph, a clinical execution of a plague. Yet, the medical establishment remains stubbornly unconvinced, viewing Snow's success as a mere coincidence. The Board of Guardians opens an official inquiry, but they refuse to credit Snow instead. They release a report blaming the outbreak on underground miasma vapors from ancient burial grounds. They reinstall the pump handle shortly after, succumbing to the comfort of old superstitions. Humanity prefers a familiar lie over an uncomfortable, invisible truth. Snow digs deeper to find the root of the evil. He uncovers the origin of the Broad Street contamination. Days before the outbreak, a mother washed a dirty diaper from a sick infant and dumped the water into a cesspool just 3 feet from the pump's well. The brick lining of the well was cracked. Human waste had been leaking directly into the neighborhood's drinking water. The tragedy is mathematically pure. The entire community was drinking the microscopic particles of a dying baby. The revelation is too gruesome for Victorian society to stomach. The ruling class continues to ignore Snow's germ theory. He spends his remaining years writing brilliant, lonely treatises on cholera, fighting a solitary war against elite ignorance. June 1858. At just 45 years old, Dr. John Snow suffers a fatal stroke in his laboratory. He dies alone with his pen still wet. The prestigious medical journal, The Lancet, publishes an indifferent minor obituary, failing to realize they are burying the father of modern epidemiology. The savior of millions is lowered into a quiet, forgotten grave. But nature enforces its truth with brutal irony. The exact summer Snow dies, the River Thames experiences the Great Stink. Under a blistering heat wave, the raw sewage in the river boils, creating a cloud of toxic stench so powerful it paralyzes London. Parliament is forced to cover their windows with lime. The myth of the air can no longer hide the sin of the water. Driven by the intolerable smell, London finally finances a massive, subterranean labyrinth of brick sewers designed by Joseph Bazalgette. Over 80 miles of underground arteries are built to flush the liquid waste away from human lungs and mouths. Without officially admitting it, the British Empire was building a colossal monument to John Snow's ghost. Today, the simple map drawn in the shadows of Soho is recognized as one of the greatest breakthroughs in human history. John Snow proved that saving humanity requires looking past what terrifies our senses into what truly rots our blood. We survived the miasma, but remember, in the theater of medicine, the price of immortality is eternal vigilance. Thank you for traveling back to this dark era with us. What part of medical history shocked you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and share it with other history lovers. This was Morbid Medicine, and we will see you in our next Dark Archive.